If my husband had walked in that night, everything would have fallen apart. The storm was shaking the house, and I was in Richard's arms, his warmth steady, his breath close, his embrace too long for just friends. It wasn't supposed to happen. He was David's best friend, but in that moment, he was mine. And that was the night everything changed. Anna had always known that living in a small town like Cedar Hill meant everyone's business was everyone else's. Secrets never lasted long. Yet, somehow, the one she carried, the one written in glances and stolen silences, remained hidden. David, her husband, was Cedar Hill's golden boy. He'd been the high school quarterback who stayed behind when others left, the boy who grew into a man people relied on. He married Anna, the prettiest girl in town, built a life with his hands, worked hard at the auto shop, and treated her with a steady, unquestioning love. He was the kind of man who showed up without fail, who fixed leaky roofs and pulled her close when storms rattled the windows. But David had never been the kind of man who noticed the small cracks, the ones forming inside Anna. And then Richard came back. Richard had been David's best friend in high school, the boy who didn't quite fit the small-town mold. He left after graduation, chasing city lights and bigger dreams. He was quieter than David, sharper, with a gaze that always lingered a second too long on Anna, even back then. She had tucked him away as a memory, another piece of her youth she'd never see again. Until one humid July night at the annual lake festival, when his voice broke through the crowd. "Anna?" She turned, tray of lemonade in her hands, and froze. He was taller than she remembered, older, his face leaner, but those eyes, they hadn't changed. "Richard," she breathed. David appeared a moment later, all warmth and laughter. "Buddy. Look at you. I didn't think you'd ever come back here." The two men embraced, the kind of reunion that drew attention from nearby neighbors. People welcomed Richard like a prodigal son. But Anna hardly heard the words, all she noticed was the way his gaze brushed hers and lingered until her stomach twisted. All night, she felt his presence, at the food stands, beside David near the lake, close enough that his arm brushed hers when they walked. When fireworks exploded overhead, David leaned back in his chair, relaxed, while Richard stood behind Anna. She felt his breath near her ear as he whispered, "You haven't changed." She didn't sleep that night. In the weeks that followed, Richard slipped seamlessly into their lives. He joined barbecues, helped David fix the boat engine, came along on fishing trips. Cedar Hill welcomed him back like he'd never left. But for Anna, it was like living in the eye of a storm. One evening, with David working late at the shop, Richard knocked on her door. Rain was already thick in the air. She almost didn't answer, but something made her open it. He stood there with a bag of takeout, water dripping from his hair. "Thought you might not have eaten yet." Against her better judgment, she let him in. They ate Chinese food at the kitchen table, the storm rattling the windows. Conversation started light, but soon his voice deepened. "You ever wonder what life would have been like if things were different?" Anna's fork froze midair. "Don't. I'm just saying." "Richard." Her voice was sharper than she intended. "David's your friend." "I know," he said quietly. "That's why I left. Back then. Because I couldn't." His words died. The silence was heavy, broken only by thunder. Slowly, as if testing fate, he rose and stepped closer. When his arm slid around her, Anna's breath caught. His chest was solid against her cheek, his heartbeat steady. She told herself she would push him away. But she didn't. For a long, reckless moment, she sank into him. If David had walked in then, it would have been over. Lightning split the sky, snapping her out of the trance. She pulled back, trembling. "You should go." His eyes burned with something she couldn't name. His thumb brushed her wrist, lingering fire, before he left. Anna pressed her forehead to the window after he was gone, shame and longing battling inside her. Life carried on. David noticed nothing. Why would he? He trusted her completely. He welcomed Richard deeper into their lives, even saying once, "Feels like old times having him back." Anna forced smiles, but inside, she felt herself unraveling. Richard was careful, never too close, never too obvious. Yet every glance, every touch when no one was looking, was enough to send her heart racing. Neighbors began whispering. At the diner, she overheard two women murmuring, "Always around Anna, isn't he? Poor David doesn't see a thing." Her face burned, but at home when she told David they should see less of Richard, he only laughed. What? He's family. The truth was, she couldn't imagine less. She both dreaded and craved his presence. The tension boiled over one Thursday night. David was out of town for work. The storm was fierce. And Richard came. "You shouldn't be here," she said, opening the door to his rain-soaked figure. "You'd rather face this storm alone?" She should have said yes. She stepped aside. Inside, the air felt charged. They sat in silence, thunder filling the spaces between them, until Richard finally broke. "Do you know what it does to me, being around you? Pretending it doesn't matter?" Her hands shook. "Don't say it." "I have to. Anna, I left all those years ago because of this, because of you. I thought I could outrun it, but I can't. And now I'm here, wanting something I can never have." Tears stung her eyes. "This isn't fair." "No, it's not. He doesn't see you, Anna. Not the way I do. He loves you, sure, but he doesn't see you." And in that moment, she knew he was right. David's love was real, but it had never pierced her like Richard's gaze. Richard knelt in front of her, took her hand. "Tell me you don't feel it. Tell me I'm the only one drowning." She couldn't answer. Her silence was its own confession. He leaned closer, his breath brushing her lips. For a moment, she thought he would kiss her, and she thought she might let him. Then lightning lit the ring on her finger. She pulled away. "Stop. We can't. I won't betray him." Richard's face twisted with pain. He turned away, pacing. Finally he whispered, "I would give up everything for you, Anna. But you'd never let me." The storm outside roared as he left, the door slamming in the wind. Anna collapsed on the couch, shaking. For days, she avoided him. Life went on with dinners, chores, laughter with David. But the silence between her and Richard was louder than words. And then came the accident. It was a bright Saturday, the calm after the storms. David had asked Richard to help move lumber for the boathouse repairs. Anna watched from the porch as they worked, laughing like brothers. Then she saw it, the frame of wet beams above the dock shifting. She screamed, but Richard saw first. In an instant, he shoved David out of the way. The collapse hit him instead. The sound of splintering would echoed with Anna's cry. By the time they pulled him free, it was too late. Cedar Hill mourned Richard as one of their own. David was shattered, blaming himself endlessly. "He saved my life," he whispered over and over. Anna grieved quietly. No one knew the truth, that Richard had been saving David all along, every time he stepped back, every boundary he honored, every sacrifice he made. After the funeral, Anna stood at the lake's edge. In her pocket was the note Richard had left in one of her books, "If things were different." She pressed it to her chest, tears streaking her face. In another life, maybe she would have chosen him. In this one, his love had cost him everything. Life moved on, as small-town life always does. David healed slowly, never suspecting what Anna carried. To him, Richard was the best friend who gave his life. To Anna, he was the man who had loved her enough to give up everything. And on quiet nights, when the wind rattled the windows and the lake whispered against the shore, she could almost feel his arms around her again, steady, too long for just friends, but gone all the same. Sometimes the deepest love isn't the kind that takes, but the kind that lets go. Richard loved Anna enough to leave, even when it broke them both. "Now I want to hear from you. If you were in Anna's shoes, would you have let Richard stay, or pushed him away before it was too late? And if you were Richard, would you fight for the woman you love, even if she belongs to someone else? Share your thoughts in the comments, I'll be reading every single one. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and tell me where you're watching from.